Hey guys, this is Wayne, and I'm back again for another video. I'm reviewing the Vortex cable series now, and this is provided from MusicTeck. Shout out to MusicTeck. Leo, thank you very much. I appreciate your opportunity, your generosity. Appreciate you. So I want to preface this by saying that I signed up for this on HeadFi. I reached out, and I was selected to pick out a few cables and see how I felt about them. I also have effect audio cables that I'm also in the process of reviewing as well, so that'll be a future video. It probably won't have the TED Talk that's going to be later in this video on that, but I might link it there. But yeah, so first thing, this is presented to me from MusicTeck. These are not inexpensive cables, and that's my first thing. These retail for about $439, $459, $759, $859. These are kind of more premium audiophile IM cables. So, do I believe in cable rolling? I kind of do, but at the same time, I kind of don't. Like, there's a kind of a thing here. Like, if you're in the market for a good cable, then you are able to spend that much money. Like, I think you can get some value here. Do I think you need to? I don't think anybody needs to spend that much money on cables. But at the same time, I understand. And if you are able to do so, I don't begrudge you at all. And I don't also begrudge you if you don't believe in cable rolling. Like, one of my favorite cables of all time is the Zin's Purple and Gold. I call it the Purple and Gold, but, it's a very nice, substantial, and premium feeling cable. It works really well. Kind of, the weave and everything like that kind of reminds me of Effect Audio. Do I need more than this? Not really. Do I enjoy this cable? I enjoy it a lot. It's one of my favorite cables. So, that is all to say, this video is going to be talking about my experience with Vortex cables, my subjective opinion, and I'm going to go on a small TED Talk about my experience with cables overall and why I'm doing this review. So, I'm going to do an unboxing experience real quick as well and kind of go into it a little bit, like what you're getting in the packaging, and then get into my subjective take along with a small TED Talk about my history with cable rolling and overall the history in, doing reviews and everything. It's going to be a little bit longer, so I appreciate if you stick with me, but if you're not in the mood to listen to me talking about cables and you think I'm a cable shill or snake oil salesman, you can probably click out now, and I don't begrudge you. I appreciate you even clicking, or I appreciate you taking the time. If you have any questions, leave comments below, and I'd be more happy to respond to it, and otherwise, let's get into it. Okay, so this is going to be an unboxing kind of video for the cables that I am reviewing at this time. You have the four cables that I received, and 3 of them have already been unboxed, but I want to kind of show you what the unboxing actual experience for the flagship, the Nadia, is. But I have 3 cables that are already unboxed. You have the Seraphina here, which retails for about $439. The Minerva, which retails for about $459 at this time. And then the Lavinia is the prior flagship, and that retails for about $759. They're kind of made of different materials, and I believe the Lavinia has a lot in there. But the Nadia, which retails for about $849, takes it up to another level. In fact, I'm going to kind of, as I'm going through and unboxing it, tell you about the different things. Like there's, let's see, the gauge is 20.6. You got 4N OCC silver, gold-plated 7N OCC copper, 4N OCC silver. I mean, basically, silver alloy, silver, copper everywhere. It's made of a lot of materials, and it's actually very nice. But I won't bore you too much more. Let's get into the actual unboxing. So this is kind of the box it came in, and then you see, ooh, shiny. Very shiny. You can kind of see my light bar there because of all the plastic. So let's go ahead and take this out. Very substantial box overall, and it's, I mean, considering the premium you are paying, it is very, very nice. So you kind of see some of the details about it. This is the 4mm, and this is a Con-X, which means a pair with the Con-X terminations that Effect Audio did. That means you can kind of swap it from 2-pin to MMCX, which is really nice. This is the Nadia, as you can see. kind of mentions it is golden ratio multi-strand with shielded twins pair 20. You get gold silver alloy, gold plated OCC silver, gold plated copper. Just a lot of materials in this. It's going to cut along. Maybe Danny slice. There we go. Let's remove all this plastic and throw it into the recycling because we recycle in this house. So there is the box. And we take it out. You get a very nice little desk mat. Very substantial feeling, kind of a leather feel. Then you have your cable. So you get the Con X from Effect Audio. Tight. That's also what she said. You get the tool and you get the MMCX kind of converters there. Very nice. The carrying case. It's a very substantial feeling. So kind of puffed out a little bit with foam in there, but very nice, very substantial. It's magnetic clasp. And then you get the cable itself and also the manufacturer's card. Very nice touch, very classy. Also have a little cable clasp, which is very nice. And this is the cable itself. This is the Nadia, their flagship. Let's see how it... Oh, okay. Actually, I think it's a little bit on the stiffer side compared to the Seraphina Minerva, considering that this is made out of several different materials. That makes sense. I think it's a little bit softer than the Lavinia, though. Wraps pretty well still. There you go. That is the cable to Nadia. Very nice unboxing experience. Has a very premium feel. And considering how much you would be paying for this, I mean, it makes sense. And, you know, price is subjective. So, I want to get into my history with reviewing IEMs and why I have the subjective take that cable rolling can work. But it's not going to work for everybody. So, I have been, for the better part of this year or so, been writing reviews on HeadFi. I've started my own website. I'm still in the process of updating that. I've gotten a bunch of, obviously the YouTube channel. I've done a lot of Discord. I've been kind of talking to a lot of people. I've been going to industry events and kind of meeting people. So I've been doing that for the better part of a year now. I've been involved or on HeadFi for a while now, probably a decade or so. I first got involved with listening to V-Moda LP2, which was a bassy headphone, and I had a Digizoid Z02. If anybody knows Digizoid, that was like my favorite little DAC amp thing that you plug in, you could really work on the bass and create warmth. Like that was my thing back then. So I went away from the audio hobby for a bit and then came back and was headphones first until my coworker, John, he introduced me to the Truth Era Zero Red and said, we were talking about Sennheiser, Dan Clark's over a period of time and really enjoyed headphones, but he was like, I'm going to take a flyer on these and I'm going to try it and let you know what I think. And he said they're phenomenal. Back then, back in my HeadFi days, early days when I was listening to the V-Moda LP2, it was like maybe 2 or 3 IEM companies, like the Atomic brand, that was it. That was all that was there. Now, since then, obviously, the IEM market has really overtaken. There's so many different companies and so many different releases out. So he tried the Truth Era Zero Red and was like, it's great. You need to try it. So I was like, all right, screw it. Let's do it. Let's start watching reviews and let's start going on YouTube and watching Critical and watching HBB and Jay's Audio and getting a feel and Tone Deaf Monk, naming everybody. Let's see what's good. So, I got involved with the water cooler tour group on HeadFi, where I was able to try out some great IEMs. I got introduced to Fat Frequency. I started doing reviews. Really started getting involved, and like, for a while I was checking out these IEMs, and there was like a lot of different cable companies like Zisen and Zins and just a bunch that like have good releases. Tripo and Zoni, like that's a great cable. I was listening to a lot of IEMs this way, like using the stock cable, and then I started rolling, and there was a lot of opportunity and a lot of different cables, and I never really paid attention to what they did. Like, I just put them on. I was like, oh, this feels good. This works. This color aesthetic works. This combination works. Like, I could add this to the dusk and add it to anything, and it works for me aesthetically. Does that mean it's the best sounding? No, because aesthetically, I didn't really care at that time. So, a few months ago, I picked up the 634 Ears Maroc 2, the Granadillo. And my unit's actually been graphed by Mark from Super Reviews, so shout out to him. I'm going to link that real quick to kind of show you what the frequency response looks like. When I used the stock cable on the Maroc, I was like, what the heck is even this? This is terrible. This IEM does not sound good. Why is there so much hype among enthusiasts? What the heck is going on? I listened to it. I didn't like it. I thought it was terrible. I'm going to be very upfront, Musashi-san. The stock cable's not good. So I was listening to it, and I was like, this is terrible. Why did I get this? And then since it was an MMCX cable, I decided to roll it to a Zins one that I had. Because I didn't have any other MMCX before, I decided to get one that would match the aesthetic a little bit better. I also had the Angel Ears Avalon at a time. So, I rolled the cable. I was like, maybe this really thin, like flimsy piece of whatever this is, cable, is just not doing it for me. I rolled it to the Zins one, and the bass was there. And what you see in the measurement is what I heard. The upper mids, can be a little bit peaky at times and a little bit like more elevated and airy and maybe borderline shouty, but overall it sounded so much better. It didn't sound anemic on bass at all. And that blew my mind because that was the first time I ever heard an IEM that sounded drastically different with a new cable. I listened to the Angel Ears Avalon and I kind of wish I'd made Mark graph that because it'd been interesting to see objectively how that works. But I listened to Avalon, and the Avalon had the bass tamed a bit more, but really had the overall like treble, the resolution, like everything was a bit more tamed, as far as like energy goes and harshness and sibilance, but it felt wider sounding, and like the clarity and the resolution and all the audiophile terms, like it sounded better than the stock cable. And that's the first time like experience an IEM sounding better with a different cable and cable rolling and seeing how it made a difference. I don't have the Maroc on me, otherwise I would use that as an example in my upcoming parts. But overall, like I heard a difference and it blew my mind. It was the first time I've ever done that. Since then, I have done some minor cable rolling. And I've never really mentioned it too much in reviews because a lot of IEMs that I do use, and I also don't want to like say I'm peddling or saying everybody should buy new cables, but a lot of standard IEMs that I've used from Zigot or Kiwi Ears or The Audio or whoever else, like I don't necessarily hear a difference using those IEMs. My take, and this is my own subjective, like, not necessarily unsubstantiated because I do hear it, but my take on this is that the nuance is that more sensitive IEMs with different, like, sensitivities and impedance and more boutique-themed IEMs or more higher top-of-the-line mid-fi, like, they have a tendency to respond to cable rolls. Another reviewer of mine, Thaslaya, Darren, I'm just gonna name you. He reviewed the AME Musa, and he actually cable rolled it, and he could hear a difference. And I'm pretty sure he was in the same field as me, where we were like, cable rolling. What does it even matter? Like we both checked out a different cable, and really like we heard nothing on it. It was an Effect Audio cable. It's like $1,800. I never did a review on it. I checked it out and I was like skeptical the entire time. But I wasn't listening on. I was listening on standard IMs. I wasn't listening on anything like too over the top, high end or mid-fi oriented. So, you know, boo on me for not having that opportunity to really give it a fair shake. But at the same time, I didn't hear any differences. But he heard it on the AME Musa when he cable rolled. And, you know, overall my take is that it's not necessarily like locked to a price, right? It's not like I'm saying, you know, oh, you have to spend $3,000 on an IEM before you'll hear a difference on a $700 cable. Like, that's not my intention. My intention is saying that more boutique and certain IEMs that are more specialized, and, you know, the art of and the fun part of discovering synergy comes from like, I have this IEM that I really like. And it's not just like a widely like, you know, oh, it's another cog in the wheel truth ear where, you know, sensitivity is this range. Like, I think the nuance and where you can actually get value from cable rolling comes from more unique IEMs that do something different, or not necessarily like, you know, very traditional like the audio or chi-fi in a way. I think it comes from more boutique oriented like manufacturers. That's kind of where I found it actually makes a difference. And, you know, I'm not saying definitively, yes, all the cables will always measure to being different, but to my ears, like I'm hearing something different. And that actually brings me to a measurement thing. So Audio Amigo, Omar, shout out. He had a Ruyi Rod cable video, and I'm going to link it because we actually were talking about it on Discord. And we were talking about like how, you know, when I got the cable, I thought it just looked pretty and it looked great. And I thought it would just match a bunch of gaudy like IEMs, you know, whenever I wanted to look something fancy. So he messaged us like, hey, does anybody else have this cable? And I thought it looked great. And so I picked it up, and he was like, hey, are you noticing that you're gonna have to bump up the volume? And when you do, like, it's bassier? And I was like, no, but hell yeah, sign me up. And so he measured his cable, and I sent him my 4.4 version because he had the 3.5. And, you know, I'm going to link his measurement here. But as you can see, there is actually objectively a measured difference in the cable between a stock cable or a different cable. And in this case, it is acting intentionally as an impedance adapter to boost up the bass. I'm not saying every single cable is going to do something different or do the same variance level of difference. I am saying, though, that there are some tricks out there that we're not aware of. And I think that in the case of Yongse and the Ruyi Rod, they've done something really unique and different. And there is a perceived difference. There's an objective measurement. It is different. I don't want to say every single cable is going to have such a measured difference. I think the biggest way to actually quote-unquote EQ an IEM without actually EQing it is more in the ear tips like range, and I'll probably do something for that eventually. But overall, like, my experience has been, you know, I had the 634 ears. I didn't like it. I rolled the cable. I found synergy. It worked for my ears. My coworker did the same exact thing. I sent it over to my friend John, who had the Truth Ear Zero Red, and that kind of blew his mind as well. You know, there is nuances to the hobby. It's very subjective, and overall, like, we all use different gear. We all use different things. We all listen to different music. We all use different cables for different IEMs. I think there is some nuance there, and that's kind of all I'm really trying to say. Like, that's my experience. That's my take on it, and I don't want to say like I'm right. I don't want to say, you know, Mark is wrong for not hearing the difference between the gate cable and the Effect Audio cable. He's not. That's what he was listening to it and he didn't hear a difference. I listened to these and I heard a bit of a difference. I didn't hear it on every single IEM, but I heard a bit of a difference. And, you know, that's my experience. So this is the Seraphina. Also a very nice cable. It's probably a little bit stiffer than the Minerva. a little bit more memory prone, and this one I think actually looks a little bit nicer. This might be like tied for my favorite with the flagship of Nadia, but what I really like about this is it feels very nice. It's a little bit more substantial feeling than the Minerva. Probably a little bit stiffer, but not to the point where it's noticeably more stiffer. Like, I think it still works really well. Feels really good. Very good material. I'm going to read off the kind of notes about this one as well, but this one is a 21.3 gauge AWG, and the shielding is copper as well as the actual material. It is a 6N OCC copper that's plated. What does that mean? It's nice. It's a nice cable. It feels pretty good. It's a little bit stiffer than the Minerva, but I do still enjoy it a lot. It still works really well, pairs really well with a lot of sources. So to my ears, running with the Jomo Nautilus and the RN6, I felt like the note weight and the mid bass was kind of emphasized a little bit more. It gave a little bit more warmth. I noticed that in especially the Jomo Nautilus, which has a good amount of mid bass, but you know it's very incisive sounding. The treble is emphasized, and this helped kind of tame it a bit more than even the Minerva. Out of all the four cables, I would say this is probably the more warmer like oriented cable because it is copper, and you know copper ends up being a little bit more of that general warmer taste. I think it works really well for like kind of more bright neutral IEMs. I don't have the Pilgrim, but I feel like this would probably be a fantastic pairing with the Pilgrim, even beyond just like the effect audio cables it comes with. I think it works really well. Again, mid bass is probably the more focused part. It does sound pretty wide and clear still. Not to say that it takes away from the treble or anything like that, but I think the more emphasized part of the sound frequency ends up being more of that mid bass warmth. You know, spatial cues and the imaging and layering separation is still pretty good. Probably not as good as the Minerva itself, but you know, still fantastic job. That's a Minerva. Well, Seraphina. We do it live here. That's a Seraphina. Okay, so this is the Vortex Minerva cable. And this one is honestly probably like my second favorite of all the cables. No, probably the third. It's very soft feeling, and sorry if you heard that giant plop. I just let it drop a little bit too low. Wraps really well. It's kind of soft and made a good material, and feels pretty substantial even though it's relatively soft in the hand. Ladies. Had to get that one in. But, you know, feels very good in the hand and wraps really well. Not too memory prone, and, you know, it's a premium feeling cable. It does not feel cheap. Now, I'm going to read off my notes a little bit. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I usually don't like to read scripts or anything like that, but I took notes on these, and I don't want to like memorize all the materials that they're made out of. I'm going to be very high level about that part, but, you know, it is what it is. This cable specifically is 22.7 AWG, which is the gauge level. It's lit with coaxial shielding, and it's made out of 4N, which is a purity level, OCC silver, and silver plated LC-OFC. What does that mean? It's made of silver. It has silver materials inside of it, and you know, usually when you go with cables, it's like silver or copper are the primary ones. You also get palladium and other materials, and just eventually we're gonna get uranium one. That'll be fun. It'll really work with bone conducting drivers, you know, that need that power. Or MEMS. MEMS, yeah, maybe MEMS. But the Minerva specifically, it is a pretty soft cable. It works really well. It feels nice. It feels premium. What does it do for the music? To my ears, with the Jomo Nautilus and the RN6, I was getting clearer resolution. Details, instrument separations were very nice. It was a bit further, more easy to tell apart in busier tracks like jazz and orchestra. The bass is cleaner. It's more textured. It's, I wouldn't say deeper sounding. It probably made more of an impact on the sub bass than mid bass. Mid bass kind of took a small step back, I feel like, and also it felt like mids were a little more recessed. So it was providing more emphasis on the resolution of treble. But overall, I think if you were to pick up the Minerva, what it works really well for is warmer IEMs, like a bass head IEM, like the Deuce and the Punch. You may not hear too much of a difference, but that's kind of like the goal of what this cable would really bring balance to. Like any type of bass head IEM, I feel like this would really help bring it out a little bit, make it a little more resolution, like emphasize, like make it cleaner sounding, more clear. That's Minerva. I have the Jomo Nautilus, which is very kind of, the stock cable kind of sounded a little bit peaky at times, a little bit sharp here and there, and this helped tame the treble, but still keep that resolution and incisiveness. The RN6 as well did a really good job of keeping the overall resolution, which makes the RN6 so fantastic, while really emphasizing more on that sub-bass feel, because the RN6 has a really good balance of sub-bass and mid-bass. I noticed the sub-bass a bit more on the RN6, but that's the Minerva. So this is the Lavinia, or Lavinia, the Vortex Lavinia cable. This is the second highest, most expensive. I think it's $700 something, and it's a good cable. It's stiff. That's my main complaint with this cable. It's on the stiffer side. So like, it's a bit more memory prone. Wrapping it's more substantial feeling. It feels thicker in hand. Like I think it's a bit stiff. That's what she said. Yeah, it's stiffer. But overall it's still a good cable. It looks great. Aesthetics, like the orange is kind of doing some things for me because it's a great combination of black and orange. Do I recommend this cable? I mean, I don't think it was my favorite cable out of all the four. What's interesting is I was getting some increased note weight, like guitar strings, piano plucks, and the mid-range field. Like I was getting a bit more note weight listening to this cable. And it felt like the separation and clarity was a bit wider. The soundstage, like, I wouldn't say it's expensive or anything like that, but it felt like it was a bit wider in the ear. And it was giving more details overall, but at the same time, like, it's hard to nitpick because I'm listening to the Jomo Nautilus and the RN6, and they already have really good soundstage capability, really good incisiveness. And it maybe, I don't know, added like a 1% difference overall on that part, like versus the stock cable. Now, it still tames the treble a little bit for the Jomo Nautilus, the RN6. I've never had any issues with the treble on the RN6, but it does make it a little bit, not less incisive, but probably a little more tamer or less sharp sounding. Still provides good clarity overall, and I think it's a good cable, but at the same time, I don't know if this is my favorite cable out of the four. I think it works well, but I would probably pair this with another warmer IEM, kind of like the Minerva. So, if you have a warmer, thicker IEM, this is probably going to work well for a pairing. I think overall, like the RN6, this worked really well for. That already has plenty of bass. It has really good stuff. I'm also listening to, I'm gonna grab this. This is very professional of me. I didn't actually plan this part, but I'm listening to a current IEM called the Sin Golden Dragon, and phenomenal, fun, bassy, V-shape IEM that's aggressive. And I swapped the termination for it to the MMCX with the Connex termination. Fantastic. It really helps with this, but that paired really well with how bassy that IEM is, and gave me a little more clarity. It helped it open up the treble a little bit more. I won't say it's like a mind-altering amount of difference, but it was good. It was a good change of pace for that IEM. The stock cables are good enough on that where I don't need it, but at the same time, like having this really helped open it up a little bit. But yeah, that's Lavinia. That's probably my least favorite out of the four, but it's still a very good IEM cable. If you're looking for something to kind of tame your warmer sources or warmer IEMs, this is a good combination. Oh, and the Lavinia is also a, let's go through the quick thing. It's a stiffer cable, and it's 20.4 AWG, so that this gauge is a little bit lower than the other ones, and you can kind of feel that difference. 4N pure silver for the core, gold-plated OCC copper, gold-plated 4N silver, palladium-plated, palladium. We're going through all the elements, guys. 4N silver. Does that mean that's the reason why it's stiffer? Maybe. A lot of materials. Not as much as the next one. There you go. So lastly, we have the Nadia. This is their flagship one. This is their new flagship that just came out. And it retails for about a bit over $800. It is a nice cable. I actually really like the look on it too, like overall, and I really like the braid. And it doesn't feel as stiff as Lavinia. It does feel more substantial than the Minerva and the Seraphina. And I think it feels the nicest out of all the four, even though it's a little bit stiffer, not as soft as the other ones. It still feels, good. It just, I don't know, it feels a little bit more special. And it's probably because it's made out of literally every single element possible. I'm going to go through real quick. And this is all going to be gibberish, honestly. It's a 25.5 all-wheel drive Core 1 that's made out of 4 different things, like 4N OCC silver, gold-plated 7 OCC copper, more silver, core silver alloy. The negative side for the polarity is 4N OCC silver and then 7 OCC copper. And shielding, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's made of a lot of materials that are combined into a cable. Does that mean you can hear a difference? When I was running the RN6 with this and the Jomo Nautilus as my 2 core ones, one that's a bit more in the mid-fi range as well as one in the top-of-the-line category, I was getting deeper sub-bass notes. And I was hearing a deeper hit, a bit more texture, than probably the other cables I was listening to. The bass notes are a bit more like textured and a little bit more popping out to my ears. I felt like the resolution and the separation weren't necessarily wider sounding, but at the same time, the separation was a little bit more noticeable. Imaging and separation was a little bit more noticeable, and I felt like the micro and macro details were actually emphasized a bit more as well. So where the details in like the Lavinia and the other cables, like listening to certain tracks like Rumors or the Cranberries' Dreams, or listening to certain tracks, I was able to pick out the details that are kind of hidden out there in the separation. But this adds that nuance where with the macro details, where a note that comes through that you would expect it to be a little bit softer and a little bit more quieter is softer and quieter. There's certain times where I'm listening to a track that I'm expecting it. And with like planars, one of the reasons why I love planar like headphones and IEMs, but there is some aspect to it where when you're listening to a track that has that nuance, you're not getting that nuance. It's bringing out that detail to be more in your face, which is great, but it's also unrealistic in a way. It's a different type of timbre. And I feel like the added realism of making some of those notes sound a little bit quieter or more pushed back, like that, this captures the nuance back again, while giving still good resolution and imaging and really good deeper like sub-bass notes. Like, I think it's a great combination. And this, not to say like you need to get this cable, honestly. Like, if you're in the market for a cable and you're looking for like a really good like flagship type of performance, like whatever that means to you, this is a good option. If I was to say my favorite, it would probably be the Seraphina, just because I like a warmer edition and it's more noticeable to my ears. This one, it still is, but I don't know if I would say it's like the performance is that much better than the Seraphina. The Seraphina does a really good job. But this does add some micro nuances. The micro and macro details like pop out a bit more, and it's just sounds more realistic. The timbre is better, and overall, I think the Vortex Nadia is a pretty good cable. Yeah. Hey guys, your boy goofed. I goofed bad, to say the least. There was actually 5 cables, so yeah, I'm gonna do another thing with the Eddie squared. Yeah, so I was breaking down the box that the Vortex cables came in, and you could kind of see like the example of all the other boxes were kind of substantial sized, and so I just assumed it was just the 4. But the Eddie Squared, this cable, was actually included with it, with a nice purple jacket. It was kind of in a smaller box, so it was kind of out of the way, and in the process of recycling, because we recycle in this house, the Eddie Squared was kind of there. It was in a smaller box, and yeah, overall, similar accessories, except for it comes with this handy-dandy, like, satchel-ish bag, purse, merce situation for travel. Actually kind of nice. Vortex stitching there. And then the cable. Otherwise, it comes with the same Connex stuff, and it's actually really nice. So this is a collaboration between Vortex Cables and Eddie Hi-Fi Audio World. So, this one retails for just under $300 USD. More affordable side. And I don't know. It's a good cable. It's purple with the stitching. It's kind of a bit stiffer. I want to say it's a bit stiffer than the Lavinia and Seraphina, but it's still a good cable. It is still nice. It's still premium feeling. It is very substantial feeling, and it still has the Connex, swap, so you can switch from the 2-pin to MMCX. And otherwise, the main difference between this and the other ones is it's probably as stiff as the Lavinia cable, which is on the stiffer side. How does this cable sound? It's kind of interesting because when I compared the Jomo Nautilus with the other cables, I could hear more of a substantial difference. With this cable, actually, I think it's a bit more subtle. So what I was getting was the mid bass is a bit punchier and a bit more defined, and the sub bass is still good. Not like overly boosted or overly elevated, but it's still good. It doesn't push anything back, just emphasizes the mid bass a bit more. Otherwise, the tonal definition, the mids, the treble, all still relatively same texture level, same detail. So I don't necessarily think it's making too much of an impact to my ears. I didn't hear much of it. I felt like the soundstage was pushed in just a little bit more, and this is because this is a copper cable specifically, as opposed to the other ones, which are more silver or different base of the material. This one's a copper cable, and otherwise what I'm getting is it's trying to push towards that warmth side, but it's not quite there. So really the main difference that I'm hearing is there's more mid bass, not a lot, just subtly more mid bass. With the RN6, I was getting the same notes. It was still a bit more mid bass, not much warmth added to it, not a lot on the top end or anything like that compared to the stock cable. So overall, I think this cable works really well if you're looking for a more substantial type of cable and you like the stitching with it being purple. I mean, purple and gold is my Lakers color, so there's that for me. But otherwise, I don't think you're necessarily missing much. I still would say the Seraphina and the Minerva. I think the Seraphina is probably my favorite cable, and this is kind of near the middle because it's still very nice, still very substantial, and the mid bass boost is actually pretty nice. It works really well, and overall, I think it's a good cable. I just don't think it's necessarily if I was in the market for Vortex cables, I'd probably push up towards the Seraphina and say save your money for that, because that's probably where it's at. That's where you start really getting different notes of bass and other elements. So yeah, this is the Vortex Eddie Squared. I goofed. So I am not going to do an arbitrary these cables are 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. I'm not going to do a number in this case. What I do want to say is that out of the 4 cables, the one I would probably pick up, and the one I would probably say people, if they're interested in trying a higher end cable, should try, is probably the Seraphina. I feel like that one's the one that you'll probably get the most use out of. I think that's going to be the one that really kind of adds color and flavor and kind of changes your listening experience. The Nadia is also my second runner-up, and I enjoy that one just because it does bring back some of those micro details and macro details that I really like in the dynamics. And I think overall, like it's very good. But I would probably say out of all the cables, the Seraphina works out really well. Probably the most accessible one out of all the four, and that's probably the one I'd pick out. So yeah, I want to thank Vortex Cables and MusicTeck again for their generosity and their allowing me the opportunity to review their cables. I'm not going to say I'm the best cable reviewer. I don't want to point out and say everybody should purchase these cables, but if you are in the market for a good IEM cable that's a step up from what you're used to, and I feel like it gives you some flavor to your IEMs and your music, like this is a good brand, and I think I would recommend the Seraphina out of all of them. But yeah, I'm Make It Wayne, and I appreciate your time in listening to this Cable TED Talk.